like to talk about everything marijuana. Legalization, medical marijuana, legislation, stupid stoner tricks, science.
Dopes of the week.
And our ever-popular dope of the week. Yeah, absolutely. I'm one of your hosts today. I'm Barry Kramer. I am the patient operator of California Patients Alliance on Melrose. We're a GLACA-accredited dispensary here in the city of Los Angeles. And with me...
I'm Yami Bolaños, and I am patient operator for Pure Life Alternative Wellness Center on La Cienega, a fully accredited GLACA dispensary as well. And I'm also the president and founder of GLACA. GLACA is the name of excellence in the city of Los Angeles since 2006. And with us today here in person is...
In person. Hello, I'm Don Duncan. I'm the California Director of Americans for Safe Access, the nation's largest medical cannabis patients advocacy organization.
And I am Dan Gabriel, comedian and GLACA-accredited pot enthusiast.
Woo!
Yay!
Totally. And we are broadcasting out of the John Lovitz Comedy Theater here at Universal City Walk. And it's always pretty darn cold in here. So if you're wondering why Yami would be wearing a winter coat in California, it is because it's colder here than it is in Alaska at the moment.
We're trying to stay warm.
So we're here, and we love the John Lovitz Comedy Theater. It's an awesome place to work out of, and John's been awesome to have us on in this capacity. And we hope you're learning a lot from our show as the weeks go by. We have some good news to start the show off with. This week, the Dalai Lama came out and supported medical marijuana.
Yay!
I like how they spin that. We now have
time.
one spiritual leader on our side.
That is awesome.
But what a spiritual leader to have.
What do you
Yeah.
suppose? What prompted this? What makes the Dalai Lama speak up about cannabis?
He was
tried
at
it.
a meeting.
Okay.
He was at a meeting, and it was in Mexico. It was with Vicente Fox. They've been having a couple of meetings about this, and Vicente Fox is eager to legalize marijuana to reduce the horrible crime and violence that goes on in Mexico.
Central and South America, there's a momentum to that, yeah. Uruguay is going to be selling, $1 grams of marijuana, so it's all the Dalai
Uruguay,
Lama.
not only are they
Vicente
selling
Fox.
$1 grams of marijuana, but they're going to be the first country to legalize a sales model for marijuana.
Yeah, who would have thought? So the Dalai
Uruguay.
Lama's on our side. I will be willing to bet you for sure right now there is OG Lama on sale somewhere. Dolly Kush, it's happening.
I'm putting that on our back as soon as we get back. No. OG Lama.
OG Lama.
Dolly, baby. Okay, so
Dolly Kush.
he basically... I wouldn't call it a full-throated support of medical marijuana, but it's illogical. It's what most people should be thinking about marijuana.
Do we have a quote?
We do.
Let's have it.
He says, the Tibetan spiritual leader speaking at an event hosted by former President Vicente Fox said that the exception for smoking marijuana would be if it has pharmaceutical virtues. But otherwise, if it's just an issue of somebody using the drug to have a crazy mind, that's not good.
Interesting. Okay.
Crazy mind.
So no
That's
crazy
sort
minds.
of that's a left-handed endorsement, sort of.
Kinda.
Well, what he's saying, and if you break it down, I actually think that it is the logical argument. If this helps people medicinally, then of course there should be no argument that you should be able to use it. And then the debate comes on the,
But if
on
you're
the crazy
just having
mind
fun
side.
with
Because a
it,
lot of people
then
have crazy
not so
minds
much.
already. It's got nothing to do with cannabis. They're just crazy minds.
Cannabis can help somebody.
Yeah, I was
going to
say the cannabis calms down the
No,
craziness
that's a
sometimes.
good start. 3 cheers for the Dalai Lama.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
It was awesome news for the Dalai Lama. I really liked reading
Obviously,
that. I thought
Mr.
it was-
Vicente Fox had something to do with him having a positive
Or maybe he has
feeling
CNN.
about,
and,
cannabis.
It's the whole Tibet-Mexico axis. That, I don't know. I'm making this up.
I hear there's some incredible medical marijuana in Tibet. Way up top on the top.
Well,
of
they're
those
already so
mountains.
high.
like monks have been perfecting in for thousands of years.
That may not
Yeah.
be true, but it's going to be the
And they're-
myth now.
yeah.
Good story.
And their growing secrets never get out because they can't talk.
The Chinese won't let them out.
They can just
Yeah.
gong.
Yeah, just this is talking to God.
One gong for sativa, 2 gongs for indica.
3 gongs is security.
Somebody took my medicine.
Somewhere there's a monk going, how many gongs again?
Oh
I'm
my
so stoned right
God.
now.
Is that 3 or is that an echo?
Thank you, Dolly, for that morning fun. And then the opposite side of the coin. We got a report that nearly 750,000 Americans were arrested for a marijuana-related offense in 2012.
Wow.
750,000 of them. And of that, let me see if I can zip down here to find that one.
That's a lot.
Terrible. That's job
What does
security.
that cost?
That's job
just
security
a
for
waste
the
of
police.
money.
More than 650,000 of them were arrested for possession. So you're not even
The
talking
vast
major
majority are just
crime.
pot smokers.
Right.
Yeah.
Just pot, just smoking pot, or you had some pot, or
I
you're
know
in
you got
a
busted.
state where it is absolutely illegal to have pot, and you are going to jail, or you're in a state where it's legal to have pot, and you're going to jail for possession, and that's marked down. And this has come down now. They said last year it was around the same. It came down from 2010, where it was around, I think, about 100,000 more. So now it's down to 750,000 people were arrested, but a couple of years ago it was 850,000 people, round figures. And the reason they think that the 100,000 people drop in those 2 years was because California decriminalized marijuana.
It's an infraction
small,
now.
small amounts of marijuana. So 100,000 people didn't go to jail for having a joint in California alone.
That's important. You know, people, when that bill passed, people were like, oh, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, but it does.
Did for 100,000 people. didn't it?
100,000 people did not go to jail. So
Look how we just
crazy
invented that
stuff.
statistic, too. Like, let's see, 750,000 people arrested. What is the Dalai Lama going to do about it?
He's going to go around to
Well,
all
he's
the
not
prisons.
supporting them. They were trying to have fun. I mean, probably.
They had crazy
These aren't
head.
you know.
Crazy head.
Those 750,000 who were in California were definitely had crazy minds.
Crazy
Let's face
minds.
it, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Most people in California have
I was going
crazy
to say
minds.
you have to have a little bit of crazy to live in California.
Advocacy groups that are backing campaigns to legalize or decriminalize marijuana said that police should be prioritizing solving violent crimes over arresting marijuana users. This has been the cry from advocates for over a decade, more than probably 2 or 3 decades. Why are you wasting time on someone that's got, you know, a
joint
little
in
bit
your
of herb on them, as opposed to the woman that's getting, you know, molested or
Raped.
Or school shooting or whatever.
Yeah,
we had another
school
one
shootings.
yesterday. Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
like, focus on crime.
And then it was, as a former prosecuting attorney myself, I believe it's irresponsible to squander our limited law enforcement resources on this disastrous public policy failure. This is Dan Riffle from the Marijuana Policy Project.
Smart man.
He said in a statement, "This is especially true when so many violent crimes remain unsolved. Every second spent arresting and prosecuting adults for marijuana is time that could have been spent preventing and solving real crimes." And I think it comes out to, as far as that second thing said, there was every 42. Last month, U.S. News reported that police made one marijuana arrest every 42 seconds in 2012.
Wow. That's
Crazy.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's.
I mean,
It doesn't look like they're working that hard.
Well, they don't have to
42
work
Well, they
that
don't
hard
have
for
to
those
work that
dollars.
hard.
That's
They're
amazing.
not fighting
that
real
they're-
criminals.
Doesn't
They're
it
not-
take more than 42 seconds each time?
It's like,
One of the things the
you
same
know,
police
roll
officer.
the joint and then
Yeah.
light the joint. That's about,
That's
42
42
seconds.
seconds.
I don't think the same police officers like every 42 seconds. It's like
Oh,
a team
okay.
effort.
I
Yeah.
get it. I get it.
It's like a
that time
statistic.
could well be put to solving real crime.
I know.
Which it should
Remember
be.
when
That's what
should
they
be
should be
put to.
doing.
the woman from Leap, what
Diane
when
Goldstein.
Diane was in here, she said that there's they're backlogged on rape kits.
Yes.
Because they don't have the resources to. There's rapes going unsolved,
Yes.
so that they can arrest people for having
750,000
marijuana in their
people.
pocket.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
ridiculous. It's just, it's just ridiculous that is allowed to happen. And that's why in the state of California, private prisons, it's job security. As long as they can bust people, then they can keep the prisons full. And
Well, it's,
Yeah,
it's
Job
and
horrible.
those
security
people
for them.
stay criminals become career criminals, and then they keep going back to jail, and it keeps feeding the system.
And what do they get in jail? Marijuana and
Yes.
pretty much anything else
That
they
they
would
want.
like. It's
Yeah.
that is one of the most ridiculous systems that we have in our country. You put people in jail for drugs, and the government or whoever they are knows
Housing them.
knows that guards and prison people, prison
Employees.
employees are bringing in drugs, and there's a whole market for it in our prisons. What the
Talk
hell
about a
is
captive
going
market.
on?
That's a captive market,
That's a
right?
captive market.
It is.
They have everything. It is a captive market.
But where's the sense in that? Why are we fighting a drug war? And in the places where we send people for punishment of the drug war,
They have
they are
everything they want.
rewarded with drugs.
With everything
Well,
they
they're
want.
not rewarded. Those cost a lot of cigarettes. or
whatever else
or
you're trying to
whatever.
I don't wanna go
Whatever
into
they gotta
details.
do.
Family
to
show,
the-
family show.
Trust me,
Family
it's more expensive in there to get whatever you need.
But isn't
The
that a
whole point
broken
is that they
system?
can get it. Yes, it's a
and
broken
that seems to
system.
literally never get addressed in the media, in action groups. I just don't hear about that argument, and it
That they're
seems.
trying to stop contraband from coming into
What
the
would the
prison.
Dalai Lama say?
What would the
What
Dalai
would the
Lama
Dalai-
say? Let's make that the theme of the show. What would the Dalai Lama say?
Yeah,
It's gonna be the
that's what
theme.
my bracelet says.
Yeah, nice. I thought I was the only one.
In past shows, we've been talking quite extensively about parents and their desire to see their children well again, and that medical marijuana is becoming a go-to for many parents that have run the gamut of Western medicine and finding no relief for their children. They are finding relief through cannabis extracts. And it seems that every week when I'm looking in the news, that and the regulatory systems for our new legal states, Colorado and Washington, seem to be
Those are the main
the
stories.
most talked about issues of our
It's
time
definitely
right
what's been
now.
happening this summer and fall, isn't it? This
And,
sort of
you
coming
know-
of age of regulation.
Yeah.
And I think the sort of federal blinking, if you will, the federal backing off just a little bit, just ceding a little ground to the states, is going to really cause that to flower. Because in Washington, Colorado, Oregon, Massachusetts, all over the country, we're seeing now the regulatory process sort of jump started for good and for ill.
For good and for ill, and they're sort of concurrent. I mean, we always go back. We've on this show gone back many times to Dr. Gupta and his documentary and his sort of apology for being
His
so
ignorance.
wrong for so long, as a jumping off point. We've called it many different things, but it seemed that it was a jumping off point, and with the government's timing as well, they've both come at the same time, which has educated and allowed, again, parents to understand that there's help for their children in certain states, and also for the government and for legislators to have some cover, legitimate cover, to say, yeah, we need to start to help our constituents who are in pain and need this medicine, and they can start to come out for it, since most of them are probably smoking it anyway, right? Our
Yeah,
legislators, don't you think? Our
Yeah.
politicians?
You know, I've worked with a lot of lawmakers since 2008, and if they're smoking pot, they need to smoke a lot more. I think it's not working out.
Many people that I've met in that field have always said, when I'm not in office or when I'm not,
I
they
hear a
all
lot of
want it.
confessions
Such a
like, "Oh, I used
closeted
to."
thing.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
such it's very and I've noticed that more so in Los Angeles. Like in San Francisco, it's more of an open. Hey, it's a community. Let's all sit. Let's smoke together and
Right,
share
right.
ideas. But and then I moved to Los Angeles. It's very
It's a whole different
It's a
culture.
whole
right?
different culture. It's like
The
you're living
same
in two
people
different-
I was in the circle with up in the Bay, down here it's
Yeah.
It's very different. Yeah.
Well, it is very different, and it's been different. It's been
different.
one of our huge struggles.
And that's why these folks are relocating, right?
That's why these folks are relocating. Let's take a little break. We'll come back and I'll talk about what they're doing, why they're relocating, what numbers they're going in, and stuff like that. And we'll chat a little more. So we're going to take a little break now, and we'll see you on the other side.
Upcoming shows to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network. Welcome to FYI. It's Dimitri Young here with Robert Fick.
Hey everybody, welcome to Talking Marijuana.
Hi everybody, Crabman's Rock and Roll Revival featuring Frazier Smith is on the air, in your hair, and going out everywhere around the world.
I'm Gary Garver, live from the John Lovitz Comedy Club.
This is the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Hi, John Lovitz here. It's time to put laughter back into your life. Check out the John Lovitz Comedy Club, located in the heart of Universal Studios City Walk, Los Angeles, not Orlando. For tickets, go to thejohnlovitzcomedyclub.com.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
And welcome back to Talking Marijuana with Don and Yami and me, Barry, and Dan. And we were talking about parents migrating to states that now have legal marijuana so that their children can reap the benefit of the medicine. And this was a little article that came out. It says epileptics migrate to medical marijuana states. Kind of a grab your attention headline.
Dan, that's some fodder for your next show.
Get out of California. And
Only
it's mostly,
epileptics in my crowd.
It's
No.
mostly children. Mostly parents with epileptic children are now packing up and moving to states that will allow their kids to use medical cannabis. And mostly this move comes after families saw the amazing stories of Charlotte and Zach Jackson, two of the Colorado kids with severe epilepsy, and both of them are being treated with cannabinoid, high CBD medicine, non-psychoactive compound. CBD is the non-psychoactive compound that's found in the medicine. And parents, this one parent says, as soon as we saw it, we knew we had to go. There are parents out in this country that are deal with on a minute-to-minute basis, 24/7. Their kids. We've talked about kids that are having 300 to 600 epileptic fits a day, seizures a day, and the fact that they can smoke the marijuana or not smoke the marijuana. I take that back. All of these kids are being given a tincture or an edible, some sort of
And one day there'll be a pill.
concentration. And one day it will be a pill.
Pharmaceutical companies are paying attention to CBD because of things like this.
Yeah,
And I think that's a
absolutely.
good trend because some people will smoke medical cannabis. Other people are happy with a brownie or a tincture. There's a whole class of Americans, and especially, I think, children who are going to want a pill or their parents are going to want a pill. And I think that's great. If some pharmaceutical company can make a pill with CBD that helps epileptic children,
Then that's what they
3
should
cheers
do.
for the pill. That doesn't mean we have to get rid of whole plant medicine
Right.
for
No.
people who prefer or need whole plant medicine. But if there's a pill for this, I'm
Let's
all for
use it, and especially to help.
And that's in the news right now.
Children,
Pharmaceutical
yes.
companies are looking at this and thinking,
It's really
is real.
sad that parents feel like they have to move, their entire, lives and children to another state so that they can give their children the proper medicine that their children need.
It will be
Yeah.
really nice when we have this settled in our country and medical marijuana. I mean, we have 25 states now that are medical marijuana
Ish.
I feel bad for the parents that are in states that are sort of teetering on the edge because they don't have the clear decision to move because their state might turn any second. So
It's a
they're
big deal,
sort of
like
locked
new
in
job,
this.
new home, all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, new schools. Yeah.
But a clear recommendation for those parents would be it is going to be months to years before things get settled in your state to be able to use it for your kid. And
But if
you
you're
really
in
want-
California, or if you're in what's the state on the border, or Arizona right
Arizona.
now, right? Then you're not necessarily going to move because it could
Well,
come around.
Arizona's also
Unfolding,
unfolding as well.
They're
as
working on it.
we're speaking.
It's one of those states where the
It does
regulations are
take
sort of
time,
creeping
though.
forward.
Regulations are creeping forward in all states. I mean, I think the regulation train is moving a little quicker now because everything's happening so quickly.
Yeah.
It's
And-
becoming legal from voter initiatives, and states have to deal with it.
Sure, and a
Yeah.
funny thing that we're seeing now is that the issue of medical regulation and non-medical regulation are now on parallel tracks and sometimes conflicting tracks, like in Washington.
Absolutely, in
where
conflicting
the officials
tracks.
who are regulating recreational cannabis that's legal in that state now are referring to medical cannabis now as the medical loophole.
Yes.
And they're like, we've got to close this loophole. And it's like, no, now come on.
This is in
Right.
which state are you?
This is in the state of
Washington.
Washington.
And
where
in Oregon, as well.
In Oregon, same. We're having similar issues in the state of Oregon, where they're talking about we've got to get rid of personal cultivation now because that could interfere with the marketplace.
Yeah.
So there's some challenges here,
Real
but,
challenges.
These parents are going to be probably better off even in a state where the regulations are still developing.
Right.
But you
And
got
to help develop
do some
that.
research. We get calls
really,
like this.
Really, the parents that are doing this are becoming advocates
Of course they
for
are.
medical marijuana.
Of course they
The
are.
way that they're able to relay what's going on with their
Because
children
they're
is
in
changing
communities
the
with other
dialogue.
parents.
Just
with,
like
with,
I became an advocate
And when
because
you-
it started working and it gave me relief and it let me, be alive and productive and stuff. Of course, I became an
Right.
advocate. You have a child and you give them something and you see that it's working. Of course, you're going to become an advocate. Of course,
That's how advocates are born.
Yeah, that's how advocates
it's
are
when
born.
it touches you
yeah.
personally. When I first heard about medical
Exactly.
marijuana, my first thought was, "Oh, that's a good skim." People will
I
totally
think we
fall
all
for
thought
that
it, and I don't blame
until-
anybody for thinking it.
Until I had loved ones who used it, and I met friends who used it. I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute, that's for real."
Yeah.
I think it has to touch you personally like that.
We've
Otherwise,
met so many people.
Yeah,
we know
exactly.
so many people from our.
it's all
been
about that personal experience that you have with it.
Yeah, and you can see it changes lawmakers' minds as well when they
We've seen that,
have
yeah.
personal.
Right here in Los Angeles,
Absolutely,
we had
Our
a
Bill
city council
Rosendahl,
member.
our ex-city council member, who talked about it with his partner. Who died from AIDS, but it made the death a dignified death. Whereas without it, it would have been absolute hell and misery and pain for Bill, who remained, and for his partner, who passed. So this is...
So how commonplace is this? People moving to states
Well,
where...
I was going to give you a little
Because
estimate
I
here.
get phone calls at the Americans for Safe Access office. People call our hotline, and I take calls from people saying, I live in Tennessee.
Where can
which
I
I
go?
do. I want to move to do I move to California? Do I move to Colorado? Which is heartbreaking to me.
It is
Yes, it is.
heartbreaking.
It's
And right
heartbreaking.
now...
No, actually, if they're leaving Tennessee, good. But, no, I hope one of our listeners is not in Tennessee.
Our only listener is from Tennessee, and we
Don't.
surely apologize to you.
Sorry,
we are
honey.
very sorry.
John didn't mean it.
I went to a tuba jazz festival in
Continue eating
Tennessee
the pork
once.
rinds and let's get going. Earlier this month, the state of Colorado. Sorry, I'm
Are you
sorry.
talking to Mexicans in Tennessee?
No, are the Mexicans eat pork rinds? I thought just people
yeah,
from
but they
Tennessee eat pork
just call them
rinds.
chicharrones.
Chicharrones?
Chicharrones, yes.
I'm Jewish. I've never had a pork rind in my life.
I don't believe that.
They're the best.
I eat a lot of bacon, but no pork rinds.
Same bit. It's like really crispy bacon.
Earlier this month,
See, he saw a family
can't
member
stand
who ate pork and loved it, and that's what turned him around.
Exactly.
See how
I
it
was
all
very
goes?
upset.
Personal experience with bacon.
Personal experience.
listen, I was very
He's
upset.
the only
I was
Jewish guy I know that provides the ham on Thanksgiving. Okay?
Absolutely, that's
so,
the best thing. It's easy. You just go to Honey Baked and pick one up. It's easy,
It's not a sin if you don't cook the ham.
and I do get a discount. So
All right.
my people are happy.
For being a Jewish ham eater, like, is it like a special?
My mom, when I was a young kid, decided that we would be kosher in our home. I'm the fourth boy of four boys. My oldest brother was 15 years older than me, and all of a sudden, when I'm a young kid, my mom wants to cut off the bacon supply and become kosher. I was not having any part of
But
that. at
your
all.
older brothers had a few years of
Bacon,
pork.
plenty.
Your dad
No, my
put his
mom
foot
found
down, right?
religion. My mom found religion when
But
I
your
was
dad
young.
put his foot down, right?
My dad and I would sneak off and go get bacon and egg sandwiches in the morning somewhere else.
Some cheese on there. Yeah.
How did we get on this?
I don't know,
podcast?
but
So
a different
earlier this month, the state of Colorado released numbers that showed that medical cannabis authorizations, the actual authorizations from the state, because you need to get one to use medical cannabis, whether you're a child or not, for children had increased dramatically, they say, from 35 to 60. So it doubled, basically. Not a huge number, but,
No, but it
that's
doubled.
still, if it's rising
nowhere,
now,
yeah.
it's going to continually rise. And I think Colorado's going to be the place that most people decide to go. And I think that for the main reason I think it is because they were sort of first to hop on this CBD train in a big growing way, where the farmers decided for a long time CBD strains would not sell to anybody because they really don't
They don't get you
give
high.
you much of a psychoactive
Key.
high, and so people think nothing's happening. Whereas truly the real medical help is happening through those. And how do they start that? I'm not high, by the way, but I can use that.
Maybe you should
Short-term
have
memory.
been.
I have short-term memory loss.
I think this whole trend with children is going to require a regulatory framework that's a little more structured than what we have in California right now, and that's maybe why people are going to Colorado, is because
All right.
if you're moving from a state where cannabis is not legal for medical use, you're not coming from a cannabis lifestyle, you're not a cannabis advocate already for legalization, whatever. You're looking for structure. You're looking for someone to tell you the rules. And
Right.
so often when people contact our office on our hotline, they want to know, where do I go to get my license? Where do I go to get legal? They crave that structure and that
Yeah.
solidness
And
because you're talking about your kids.
especially for kids.
Yeah, yeah.
And especially for the
yeah.
children, yeah.
So
It's
if I tell them, come to California, sign up at a shop, and go home and try it out, they don't like that. They want to know that they go to some office somewhere and get a license and a permit.
Absolutely.
And that, we're working on that in California. We're working on that kind of structure. I know that scares some people, but we need it.
But it should be comforting for them to know that you can overdose on marijuana.
of course, yeah.
But I think the whole complete picture, that you're legal, that you have someone's permission to do it, so your child is not breaking any laws, you're not breaking any laws.
Yeah.
It's like a whole package,
happens
like
in
as
a-
a parent, that
Yeah.
you want to protect yourself and your child and do the right
It
thing.
needs to
So-
feel like medicine, too.
Exactly.
And that's one thing that I think we forget in California because our program started very catch as catch can.
Right.
Is that for many people who aren't cannabis people, medical cannabis needs to feel like medicine. It doesn't necessarily feel like medicine and when you walk into a shop around California or in some of the areas of the country where regulations are not very well developed.
Right.
Even in the early days in Denver, it didn't always feel like medicine. And so I have the mom test I do. Like, what would my mom think?
Yeah.
And if she walked into the average shop in Los Angeles, California, she'd be horrified. She'd be like, what the hell's going on? They're selling drugs on a counter. Like, where's
They're
the label?
smoking,
Where's
there's
the
a bong
pharmacist?
out.
There's a
If you
bong
went to a
out.
Glocka
Yeah.
dispensary, she'd be very happy.
Absolutely.
I hope so.
Yeah.
That's one of the things when we were developing our protocols, of course, are a part of a long tradition of self-regulation in the state of California. In those earliest days in Berkeley, sitting around the table at the Berkeley Patients Group trying to dream up our first protocols, I was thinking in my head, what would someone like my mother want to see if she walked in a place like this?
Yeah, because a pharmacist very rarely says, "What up, yo?"
Very rarely. It happens.
When you walk
but-
in, it's very.
But yeah, there's a facet of healthcare, of medicine and treatment where you need to buy into it. You need to. There are familiar stories that you need to tell. Like when you take an aspirin, you have a story you tell yourself about that aspirin.
Right.
This is going to kill my pain. This is safe.
Right.
This is the medicine my mother used to give me. That like Tylenol has these associations in my head, and I expect it to work. And so when I take Tylenol, just like I have my whole life, it has a text that goes along with it, a story. And so that
And
we
possibly
need
a
to create.
placebo effect because you know that
All
it's...
medicines have a placebo effect, but that story we tell ourselves, they actually call the placebo text in research. It's called a placebo text, not because it's fake or it's in your head, but because when we know what we're looking for in medicine,
It's how you
more
frame
accessible to
your
us.
experience.
Which is why, by the way, even though THC has limited medical benefit for most patients, they still want to feel high because that feeling of high is what tells them they've achieved the dose that will be
Exactly.
therapeutic active. And so we have to think about this in terms of medical cannabis, is that if we want the mainstream to embrace cannabis as medicine, it has to look and feel and act like medicine.
And
It
that's what-
upsets me that we have to discount the high part because that's
We
the
don't.
best. That's
Same thing happens with Vicodin. When you take a Vicodin, you feel a little woozy and dizzy, pain relief is coming. That's how your brain telling you. So
Yeah.
it's not just discounting the high, but we have to recognize that there are a lot of people who want relief and don't want to get high.
Right.
And they have a different placebo text than we have.
And there's a lot of people that want relief, don't want to get high, but they don't want to get high because they don't understand what that high means.
Exactly.
There is a very pleasant feeling of being high doesn't mean that you're off and you're ready to rob people and you're a crazed maniac, which is the
Reefer Madness.
Reefer Madness mythology of it. Being high is, geez, all of a sudden I feel good, and
All of a sudden, I'm not worried about the
relax.
bullshit I
Yes,
was worried
relax.
about.
Except if you're like a recovering heroin addict, the high feeling can make you feel uncomfortable
Everyone has
because
different
that's what they're
associations.
trying to
Everyone has
stay
different-
Now
away.
imagine how
you
these
know?
kids, they're moving into Colorado and other places, they're not getting high on the CBD. Imagine the different experience they're going to have growing up with cannabis
Yeah.
than
Yeah, they're
the
like,
rest of
so-
us had.
What for?
Their placebo text won't include being high.
It's going to be interesting because the new generation that's growing up is growing up. Just like with iPhones and the technology that, they're way ahead of us as far as how their brain adapts to it. This generation growing up now with legal marijuana coming out and medical marijuana showing all the benefits of medical marijuana, they're going to have a completely different view on marijuana and hopefully continue to change.
Yes, it's going to be very normal for them.
Yeah.
I'm the feeling of being high is nothing weird. I remember when I was a kid taking NyQuil, and I knew damn well I was going to get a little drunk on it.
You're like, Mom, I have a cold. I think going to NyQuil will help.
Cold again.
We're going to take a NyQuil.
Go to Costco and
We're going to take a NyQuil break right now. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bust out my bottle, and we're all going to have a little swig while we take a break for this, and we'll be
the
back
segment's
right
brought to you, by the way, by
after.
NyQuil.
This segment brought to you by NyQuil. Sleep tight. See you later.
Back.
This is the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Upcoming shows to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Welcome to FYI. It's Dimitri Young here with Robert Fick.
Hey everybody, welcome to Talking Marijuana.
Hi, everybody. Crabman's Rock and Roll Revival featuring Frazier Smith is on the air, in your hair, and going out everywhere around the world.
I'm Gary Garver, live from the John Lovitz Comedy Club.
This is the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Hi, John Lovitz here. It's time to put laughter back into your life. Check out the John Lovitz Comedy Club, located in the heart of Universal Studios City Walk, Los Angeles, not Orlando. For tickets, go to thejohnlovitzcomedyclub.com.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
You're the only one who did it.
I'm the only one who did it. They faked me out here. That's our engineer giving us the finger, and I was giving the finger back.
And
Just so you know.
here we are.
Okay, so we're going to continue on here. Big thing this week in the news is in the last 2 weeks, because of qualification and other reasons. California's pot legalization. We're here in California. We were the first state to bring on medical marijuana, and I've often said that I'm very happy that we were not the first state to have legal marijuana because we haven't really settled our medical marijuana problems. We don't even have statewide regulations for medical marijuana, much less to open up the gate. But I am a full-on proponent of legalizing marijuana here in California, and I cannot wait for it to happen. I just want it to happen so that people are safe, so that laws are real, so that law enforcement is aware and prepared. I want preparation, which is what we really didn't have when we were the first out of the gate.
Blazing a trail.
Exactly.
We had cojones and we had the drive and we got it done, and we set the tone for the rest of the country, and that was a great accomplishment. We don't have to be first in everything.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see how Colorado and Washington work things out. But here in California, you want to go over the situation and...
Well, California is very big on the initiative process. In fact, back in 1996, voters legalized medical cannabis using the initiative process. What people don't remember, so now 17 years later, is that process took about 6 to 10 years in advance of 1996 to do it. There was organizing and debating and infighting. There was a movement building process that took place. And then when they actually launched the effort, it took 2 years to pass a city initiative in San Francisco, a city and county initiative, and then 2 more years to get on the state ballot and actually pass it. So it's a long, long process, but that's the kind of committed activism that it took to pass the first medical cannabis law in the country.
Right.
So now people are looking to the ballot for to legalize cannabis for non-medical purposes. And if you live in a state that doesn't have an initiative process, this is basically a process where voters can gather enough signatures, whatever's required by law, and place something on the ballot for approval by the voters. So not every state has that. We forget.
So it kind of bypasses state
legislature. This is the people just passing their own law by themselves. So 20 some odd states allow this, and the others don't. So some states do it and some don't. California can do that. And so that's what they want to do. And so we actually tried a couple of years ago with Proposition 19 to legalize cannabis for non-medical purposes, and got close. We were within a few points of passing, but it didn't quite make it over the hump. It was very controversial. And so activists and advocates and people who are interested in marijuana legalization have been sort of brainstorming about what to do. And I guess there are two tracks that people have embarked on. One is the 2014 initiative processes, where some people are trying to adopt an initiative in 2014 to legalize medical cannabis. And then there's another track for looking at 2016 and saying, hey, it took forever to get medical marijuana passed. Let's take our time, let's build our movement, let's build our finances, and go to the general election in 2016 when voter turnout is going to be much larger, and which favors liberal causes, at least in California. And so I myself, I'll just, if I'm going to speak in just for myself, I'm all about 2016. That's the time to do it. It gives us time to finish medical cannabis, and it also gives us time to actually build a statewide organization that can pass a measure, because that was hard. Friends of Proposition 215 took years to build. But 2014 is what we're talking about today. There are two proposals for ballot measures in California to legalize cannabis in 2014. There's the CCHI, which I believe is a California Cannabis and Hemp Initiative, right? Okay, I'm getting the acronym. It's alphabet soup. And then there's
the NyQuil's got me a little.
I know, yeah.
Remember.
I should have done 2 shots. And then there's the Jack Herrera's initiative.
Is it the same one?
Is it the same one? I'm sorry, am I
Jack
confusing?
Herrera
Okay, there's
in
the CCHI is the Jack Herrera's initiative. Jack Herrera, of course, a legendary cannabis activist. It's named in his honor. He's deceased now. And then there's a second one. What's the acronym? I'm blanking on it right now.
I'm going to find that out. CCPR and...
CCHI, and then... then there's the other one, and we're going to get that name in a moment.
CCPR.
These two, that is an organization.
Cannabis.
CCPR is a political action group.
Okay.
But these two initiatives share in common the fact that neither one is funded. And the sad truth is that I think the last time a ballot measure got on the ballot without paying for signature gatherers in California, I think, somebody should Google this and find out, but I think it was in the 70s.
Oh my God!
And from at this point, Save the Wolves was the last one where volunteers actually went out in the streets and successfully gathered signatures to put on the ballot. It doesn't happen anymore.
Wolves?
To save the wolves, yes. Endangered species. I don't know the details.
Don't you think that's important? What's the matter?
Not more important than this.
But in this day and age, the requirements are high, the population's big, it costs a lot of money, and you need professionals because every bad signature you get, not registered voter, wrong address, they made the name up because they wanted to help and didn't want to sign their name on it. All of those are strikes against the initiative, and they do a random sample of your signatures, and if you get too many phony ones, you fail.
Right.
And so you need professionals to do this in California this day and age. For good and for ill, you need professionals. And so the first thing you need is a ton of money for a statewide signature gathering campaign. And then there's going to be media and legal fees. It costs millions of dollars to do a non-controversial initiative. If it's controversial, the marriage equality issues and then the efforts to take those away, to take away marriage rights. Tens of millions. And so this is a big thing. And so the common issue I think we have right now with these two initiatives, despite the good intentions of the people who are behind them, is that they just do not have funding behind them because your sophisticated larger donors are looking at this and saying it's too soon. We're not ready, and I'm not going to put millions of dollars up front for this thing because.
And I have some problems with the wording. Am I not?
You are correct.
I mean, I'm correct in that. There's some problems with the wording that should they become legal, should they pass in some way or the other. We're going to have a very difficult time regulating it.
One of the things I was reading is that they're taking a wiki approach to writing the initiative, and we don't do that in law. Even though I understand what they're going for, it's like this is democracy, and that's all great. But
like letting anybody add to it or change it.
Yes, having a public input thing online where you can suggest changes and all of that. The reason we don't write law that way is because it's a specialty. We wouldn't have wiki brain surgery, and it's like you need input from people.
You
like,
can't
that's
give
important.
every jackass a say.
Well, everyone should have their voice, but
then it has to be synthesized.
I also believe in total legalization. I believe in hemp. I think all of that should happen. But having just experienced a year of politics in the city of Los Angeles, it cost us $1.5 million, to put an initiative on the ballot and to get it passed. Democracy is very expensive in California, very expensive. And I don't see how they think that they can pass anything if they don't have any money. just having left the experience that I'm just talking from the experience that we just had, $1.5 million, and we had to collect between the band and the initiative. I think it was 130,000 signatures. First 50,000, then 72,000. These people have to collect. One group has to collect 500,000 signatures. The other group has to collect 750,000 signatures. So the plan that I've heard is that they're going to
excuse me, just for 1 second to clarify that, those are the numbers
Valid
that they need
signatures.
that are valid. In order to have that valid, you need to have a good
50%
percentage,
above.
50% more.
Exactly.
Can one person sign both?
Sure.
Yes, we can.
Of course.
Okay. The thing is that how they think they're going to be able to, if they have to collect 750,000 signatures, how they think they're going to be able to do that. I've heard that the plan is that they have 5,000 people that each are going to collect 250 signatures. I don't see how that's going to happen. I want legalization in the worst way, but I don't see how that's going to happen. And I know people I've talked to that are in both camps,
And they
look at me and
they're
they
very
say,
passionate.
Yeah, and they're very passionate, and I'm a cynic, but I'm not a cynic. I just finished LA. We just finished
You
doing
need
LA.
a balance.
So-
Like you have to believe in things, you have to take
Yes.
risks, but you also have to be reasonable because when we put these things out and we fail, there's a cost to pay.
Yes.
When Prop 19 lost, we lost ground nationally and in
Absolutely.
California
Yes.
because of that. And so they were raised, and even the initiative sponsor was raided by the DEA. So there was payback.
Well,
you don't want to lose if you can help it.
Yeah.
Well, also we had plenty of people who were against Prop 19 that are still supporters of the cause. Growers were against Prop 19.
A lot
Don't
of
get me
people-
started on growers
No.
against 19.
A lot of people in Los Angeles were against Prop 19 simply because the medical situation was such a mess.
Well, and there were people in our community too. Like a lot of people objected on the terms. They said, "This isn't a very good law." I voted for it because I thought it's better than nothing. But there were people, and I'll just call it out and say it. There were people who did it because they feared that Prop 19 would cut into their profit base.
Yeah.
No,
And
absolutely.
that's wrong. That is
Yeah.
wrong.
We
You
can't
should be willing to
deny
vote.
that.
Selfish.
You should vote against your personal interest when you
Right.
have to.
Yes,
you can't
you have
deny
to.
that people
I
are
did.
doing
I
that,
went
but
there
we have a
and voted yes.
situation in Los Angeles where we have over 1,000 dispensaries that are illegal anyway. They're certainly not going to want to have legal marijuana
They're out of
competing with
business.
them because they're out of business. And so you're right. You need
There's
to.
some of that, but people should be irrational enough in democracy to vote against themselves, and that things will be better. There's something else we have to think about these initiatives too, is that to a certain extent, each contains sort of a dream list of provisions.
Correct.
Yeah.
And when
Their
you're
wish
writing a voter
list.
initiative, you have to think towards the middle. You can't be like, we're the cannabis community and here's what we want. Here's our dream measure. Because we have to remember that if we just talk to ourselves, that might seem like a good idea. But when you go out to the community, there's still like stigma and fear and misunderstanding about cannabis. And you have to play to that center.
have
Because remember,
to.
you need 50% plus one to pass. And so you have to get everybody on board.
You have
And that's
to.
like one of the lessons of Measure D here in Los Angeles was that we weren't going to get our dream initiative. We needed something that the neighborhoods would line up behind,
Absolutely.
which meant controlling and reining it in. And one thing they're going to have to think about on the state level is that when you get outside of San Francisco and Berkeley and West Hollywood and Palm Springs, people have some concerns about legal marijuana.
they do.
Absolutely.
And you're going to have to address that and have safeguards and regulations in place. So you can't write the initiative you love. You have to write the initiative you can live with. And
And I'll
that's
tell you
what they're
what,
not doing. They're not looking at what the majority wants.
Both
Absolutely.
initiatives that are out there right now for 2014 are wish lists. It's
Exactly.
wonderful. I read the first one. I was like, "Wow, I wish."
Sure.
I
Hey,
wish.
one day,
It'd be
but-
great. You know.
Put it to the mom test again. Is this what your mother would vote yes on?
That's the
because
test.
there are more people who are not cannabis identified voters than there are people who are. We're a tiny fraction, and that's something I can criticize this movement going all the way back to the early 1990s and the early days of the state initiative campaign for medical marijuana. Is that we have meetings and conferences and we all talk to each other and reinforce our beliefs, or fight amongst ourselves, whatever the case may be, and we forget to go out and visit the neighborhood councils and the chambers of commerce and the church groups and the Rotary Club and hear what they're thinking. What will they support?
Because we are marijuana users and smokers and medical marijuana users and smokers, we are still part of the larger community.
Sure.
Yes.
And we can't just be our one issue.
It doesn't work
you
like
have
that.
to come to my side of things. We have to fit in with our communities.
Exactly.
We can't scare them by putting up the huge green crosses that are all over the city. That's why we're in the situation we're in Los Angeles. And it's not. It hasn't helped real medical marijuana patients that need their
we
medicine.
talked about money, and one of the things that money buys you is polling and research,
Yes.
which is so crucial to the initiative process. And so, between now and 2016, I hope there's both time, money, and expertise for polling to find out what they can put on the ballot in 2016 that everybody can.
Let's
line
come
up.
back after our break here, and I'd like to just finish this by talking a little bit about the blue ribbon panel that's been put together for the 2016 election. We've talked about 2014, and we'll go on to that, but let's take a little break. We'll come back.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Upcoming shows to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Welcome to FYI. It's Dimitri Young here with Robert Fick.
Hey everybody, welcome to Talking Marijuana.
Hi, everybody. Crabman's Rock and Roll Revival featuring Frazier Smith is on the air, in your hair, and going out everywhere around the world.
I'm Gary Garver, live from the John Lovitz Comedy Club.
This is the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Hi, John Lovitz here. It's time to put laughter back into your life. Check out the John Lovitz Comedy Club, located in the heart of Universal Studios City Walk, Los Angeles, not Orlando. For tickets, go to thejohnlovitzcomedyclub.com.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Hey everybody, we're back. We're talking marijuana and specifically talking legalization here in California. We are talking. We've talked a little bit about two organizations that are raising funds and trying to raise signatures to get an initiative on the ballot in 2014. But there is also a blue. They call it a blue panel.
Blue ribbon, yes.
Blue ribbon panel that's been put together. It's called the Californians for Cannabis Policy Reform. And I think it's being headed up by Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom.
He is going to chair this panel. This blue ribbon panel. I thought it should be a green ribbon panel, but apparently it's a blue ribbon panel.
And what's
Maybe it's the best of all the panels.
Whoa.
You ever think about that?
This panel is trying to do what we've been talking about for the last 5-10 minutes here, which is to take a step back, think of all the pitfalls that we might run into, to craft legislation that will be tolerable on all sides, that the industry can live under, and that our citizens who are not interested in legal marijuana can also not feel, abused by. So
3 cheers, by the way, for our Lieutenant Governor for stepping up while in office to do this. This isn't a retired politician with nothing to lose. This dude's in office.
It's amazing, and it brings a lot of credibility.
Well, he was the
to
mayor of San Francisco.
He's a very progressive.
His supporters, I'm sure, have been on him about this.
Yeah, about like, oh no, Gavin, really? Yeah.
And so, what are some of the differences in the 2016 as opposed to the 2014?
The 2016 is not written, but the idea of the 26 initiative is that it would legalize and regulate non-medical cannabis use, including the provision of cannabis through a rational situation where the production and distribution is regulated. And at the same time, it would be very careful not to step on medical cannabis, which we've seen in Washington, Oregon. We've seen troubles with that. We're going to see it in other places too.
Yeah, we have it in
where regulations for non-medical step on patients' rights. And so I've been calling for, both privately and publicly, for a medical voice on this panel, somebody to sit on this panel to represent the interest of medical cannabis patients who are going to be impacted by whatever happens with legalization. Because remember that legalization and medical marijuana overlap at the criminal justice system.
Yes.
But there's a lot more that where they're separate. And so we need to make sure that's represented. And so I think this is a great rational approach, and that they need to be very mindful of the fact that medical cannabis is going to be impacted by what they do. And one of the initial motives for the medical cannabis initiative was to get the patients out of the crossfire of the drug war. And so we need to keep that mentality as we move to 2016 for a voter initiative, about being sure that voter initiative doesn't inadvertently step on the progress we've made with medical cannabis.
And keeping medical cannabis patients out of the crossfire, we've got something that's come up in California here now this past week. For the third time, a medical cannabis patient is being prosecuted by truly evil woman.
Bonnie Dumanis.
Bonnie Dumanis in
San Diego District Attorney.
She
Bonnie
will not
Dumanis.
let this guy go. She has pursued him and has been beaten at every single cross.
Well, this all
that they've
started
come in.
years ago, 2002 or so, and in San
Yeah.
Diego, Operation Green Merchant, they went in and raided a bunch of medical marijuana dispensaries, and Jovan Jackson was the patient operator of one of these facilities in San Diego, and he was busted. And he went on trial, and he was acquitted of all medical marijuana charges. Just one. And they retried him. They,
thought you
a
can't
few
do
years
that.
later, they brought new evidence and blah, 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 and retried it. And at the second trial, he just got a really bad judge, and the judge disallowed all medical testimony, said it was a farce, medical marijuana was a joke, he wasn't going to have it in his courtroom, and Jovan was convicted. So Americans for Safe Access took the case on appeal. We took it to the appellate level and said, hey, you can't deny him an appeal. This is the state law. Like, you can't deny his defense in court.
Absolutely.
Even if you don't like it, win or lose, he gets to make his defense. And the appellate court agreed and overturned that conviction and said, you know what, that was wrong, not guilty. So twice. He was acquitted, then his conviction was overturned. And so you would think that would end it, right? The case is called People versus Jackson, and it establishes the medical defense in court. It was a huge victory in California to finally have it in black and white, a published decision that says if you run a medical marijuana facility in California, you can go to court and make a defense. The
Which
fact
we
that-
never had before.
Never.
And we've gone to sit through many
and-
trials of our
Where they're like, no
friends
defense,
and
no defense.
operators.
That defense has been used in other cases
People
to dismiss
are
cases
free
against
today.
other people
They're free
because of that
Jackson.
defense.
So
Yes.
awesome victory there. But Bonnie Dumanis is a crusader against medical cannabis. And for those of you who are listening from outside California, on the off chance that happens,
There's a guy in Tennessee that is listening to us.
He turned us off because I insulted Tennessee. In California, San Diego is a military town. It's very conservative. It's not San Francisco. It's the opposite of San Francisco. And so she's really after him, and they just announced plans to prosecute him a third time. They said, fine, you're going to go to court and make your medical defense this time. They're prosecuting this guy for the third time. The
Can
trial
we
started this past
prosecute
Monday.
her?
You would think. Do you know the maximum penalty in California for prosecutorial misconduct? Does anyone know it's $500?
Come on.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yes.
That's all she would get, even if
$500
they found her
fine.
guilty all three times? That she's guilty?
Well, I say let's fine her.
Let's fine her
$500.
$500 three times.
Poor man's going on trial. He'll get his defense, but can you imagine for years, since 2002, this man has been dealing with this. 2004, I think I said.
It's
Trying to get that
That's
monkey off his
the only
back, huh?
punishment for prosecutorial.
$500. So Jovan
You can
Jackson
ruin
going back
somebody's
to
life
court.
and only have to pay $500 for it.
That's a bargain.
That's
That's a
pretty
bargain.
amazing. Why not?
And if you
go
ruin two
after
lives
him?
at once, it's $750. No, I'm joking.
You get a bargain.
What? So Asa had taken on this case in the past. Are you taking?
No,
on
no.
it?
He's going back to trial court. So in
Okay.
trial court,
His trial lawyer is
there's a trial
working.
attorney who do that. We do appeals.
And do you come as a friend of the?
You may. There's court support every day. So if you're in the San Diego area,
When does
and
that start?
It started this past Monday. He's yesterday. He's
And
trial
if
started.
you go to Americans for Safe Access, can you get a schedule?
Go to
when the
Americans for
court supports?
Safe Access /blog, BLOG, and you can read a blog all about it. Also look at sdsafeaccess.org, San Diego Americans for Safe Access, and there's information there. I also want to invite you, wherever you are when you're hearing this, go to americansforsafeaccess.org/blog. Go to our blog. It's in the news section if you go to the homepage, and sign the petition for Jovan Jackson.
petition.
We have a petition asking the judge and the prosecutor just to quit it. Just stop.
That's a stop.
Just leave this man alone. They got 2 shots at him. They failed. Just leave it on. In the interest of justice, just stop. Because both the judge and the prosecutor have that discretion. So
One of the
And
great.
this man is a nice man. He has a nice family, a wife, everything. He's just a normal
He's
guy
Joe
with a
Everman.
family. Yeah.
I'll call this out. It's San Diego, and I've already offended Tennessee, so let me
Yes.
offend San Diego. Jovan Jackson's an African American.
Yes.
And I believe there are some race issues that are going along with the culture war that surrounds all of this. Because I have never seen anyone targeted like this.
Yeah, no, he's really been targeted.
And I cannot believe that
Bonnie is a bitch.
I'm not here to accuse anyone individual of being a racist, but we know our criminal justice system that racial bias
absolutely.
is built into it, and I can't believe that that's not a factor in this.
That's really
So sign the
sad.
petition,
Yes, sign the petition.
americansforsafeaccess.org/blog.
It's one of the things that Americans for Safe Access does really well, which is organize actions for you, the viewers, the normal person, to the patients, the people that are interested in moving forward progressive legislation. Americans for Access makes this so easy. When you get to their website, it's literally, you don't have to sign lots of things. You read the letter that they're sending to your specific lawmakers, and all you need to do is click, put in your name, and
You can change it if you want. You can modify it. Add
and you can
something
modify
in.
the letter if you like. If you actually want to add your 2 cents, that's basically a better way to go.
And if you're a member, all your data's saved already, so it'll fill in the blanks for you.
And if you're a member of ACA,
so
it will fill in
easy.
the blanks. But it's so easy to do. Go to Americans for Safe Access. Check out this website. There are lots of actions that just you're clicking on a little tab can help so many people and help their lives, help their families.
If you're a
It's very
patient, you're
important.
helping yourself.
And you guys really organize that in
Right, yeah.
a great way. Many organizations do it, but Americans for Safe Access is constantly there for the patient. So you should tune in on that for sure.
So is Bonnie our dope of the week, or we have a separate dope?
Bonnie's always the
Bonnie
dope.
is.
She's more like the dope of the decade.
Yeah, Bonnie's the dope of the decade, and we're
Dopette.
gonna get a
Dopette,
award
yeah.
for her or
Yeah, we
something like
should.
that. But this week, someone mentioned to me this story, and I just couldn't believe it. I had to go.
I like that we're going international here.
Yes.
It's exciting.
We had Uruguay earlier on, but this is from the Mail, the Daily Mail.
If you don't know, that's the English National Enquirer.
Absolutely, but it is one of their. It's not like the National Enquirer here, which has a small select group of readers.
Nicely said.
This is the National Enquirer in England, and everybody reads this paper.
But it's a tabloid. But
it's tabloid. It's
silly
sensational
headlines, sensationalist, and everyone knows it. That's what it's.
So this
entertainment.
story just drove me crazy. Okay. Think cannabis is harmless? It drove this grammar school boy insane, then killed him. That's the headline.
Nice rational journalism.
That's the headline, okay? We're going to go into what the article says, but first of all, he wasn't a grammar school boy when this whole article that they're talking. I mean, he was at some point a grammar school boy.
But he was 20.
It's a terrible tragedy
He
that
was
happened.
20 when he
When he
passed
died.
away.
And,
He passed away in a mental institution that he was put into, and it is
Exactly.
an awesome tragedy.
The poor
when
kid had
anyone
mental
dies.
illness.
Wait, tell the whole story
Okay.
because
Yeah,
you're
I'm
kind of
jumping all over,
we're
right? 'Cause I know
commenting
it.
on it before
It
even.
makes you
Dan.
mad to read it, though.
Okay, here we go.
I was pissed off when I was reading it.
Sells papers. That's all
Basically,
they're trying to do.
this woman's son died in a mental institution. She feels the mental institution states that cannabis was what caused him to have his mental illness, and therefore led to his death. That's what the
As long
the
as it's not
hospital
on
says. The
them, they're just trying to say it's not their fault.
And basically, this mother is basically saying that when he was young, she smelled cannabis on him all the time, and he had this cannabis problem. His friends had cannabis. He was smoking cannabis, and he admits that he was smoking cannabis. What's never talked about in here are all the other drugs that this man, and it's not
Or
talking
the
here,
clear
so I'm
mental
just
illness
assuming.
Yeah, or the clear
But he has
mental illness.
clear
that he
mental
had.
illness that he had also contributed to this guy's death. Did he smoke cannabis? Yes. She even says that he got cannabis in the mental institution where he went to get cleared of the cannabis.
That's what I don't understand. That story's kind of crazy because, it says
the
that when
Daily
she
Mail.
would go visit him at the hospital and the stench of cannabis was sickening to her. And then, so they were giving him the stuff that
A
was making him
post-mortem
crazy
examination
inside.
has since also revealed 4 to 5 mystery needle marks in Matthew's groin. Okay, this guy they don't even know at the facility what those needle marks were for. This guy was
I'm
doing
guessing he
other
was not
drugs.
shooting kush.
Let me tell you what they're attributing. Let me tell you what they're attributing.
But it also says that there's 4 other people in the past years that have committed suicide or hung themselves. One hung himself out of a tree outside the facility.
Sounds like a lack of
So it sounds
oversight
like
in this facility.
There's somebody encouraging
This
these people
inmate
to
can
kill
shoot up and
themselves.
kill himself.
Matthew
Yeah, I mean,
continued, and by the time he was 17, he left school. By the time he was 17, he left school with awards, the equivalent of 2 A levels. He began his own computer support business, and so he was.
So he didn't
doing
have problems
pretty well,
till you
and he was-
locked him up.
And he was smoking marijuana since he was like 13, 14,
Sounds like
15.
he was
Okay.
doing
Typical
okay.
scapegoating and stigma and all of that.
Now, the mom says, he began saying as if he felt something was crawling over his body. I researched it and pointed out to Matthew it was an effect of cannabis smoking. Doctors call this formication, and it's one of the number of hallucinations that it can trigger. It became so
It sounds
severe.
more like schizophrenia displaying itself late in adolescence.
Not
which
only
is typical.
schizophrenia, but other drugs that people take. And we not talk about meth
I've
and
had friends who are schizophrenic.
crack and
That's-
all kinds of things that you shoot in mysterious ways that might not be able to be explained. And this guy was feeling like worms were crawling out of his body.
Is he
You have
using his
never heard
eyes?
this from a cannabis
Never, no.
user. Never, never. This is done with hard drugs.
This is
This is the dope of the century.
absolutely.
The dope of the century.
The Daily Mail
and
is the
from
dope
what
of
I
the
understand,
week.
England is not very cannabis friendly. So this kid is stirring a lot of
Anti-cannabis
sentiment.
I think
in
that
England.
the laws in England are I know that it's the younger people are smoking a lot of cannabis, but it's the older class is even further away from it than our
Absolutely.
our elders.
A good dope of the week. This is exactly.
This is a good dope of the week, and comes.
The whole Daily Mail. Let's just call shenanigans. Of the whole
I say
paper.
all of England.
Oh
basically,
wow!
is
Now
the
wait a
dope of the
minute.
week.
Wait a minute. We don't want to get in trouble like we did with Tennessee.
They're reading this shit. That's all I'm saying. They're reading this.
This is a mom. Yeah.
The Queen, dope of the week. Okay.
I would say the editorial board, the advertisers.
I take that back.
Let's let the country off the hook, and
All right,
certainly not Wales.
We'll leave
Come on,
it,
Wales
we'll
didn't
leave
do
it with
shit.
the Mail. Let's leave it with the Daily Mail as dope of the week. The mom who
The mom
obviously
and the institution.
and the institution.
And the doctors.
And let's just say that we are terribly sorry that
Yes.
this tragedy
Yes,
happened, and we
why-
hope that it
why
wouldn't
did this have to
happen.
be
But
happening?
don't
Why can't
bring it
this-
But
again.
he wasn't a grammar school boy. That's just bad
know.
journalism.
It is.
That's
It's Daily
even
Mail.
for sensationalism. That's bad journalism. Throw in a crocodile
Space
or an
aliens.
alien if you
Space
want to.
aliens. That's what this story needs. is
Bad
space aliens.
journalism is our domain. Please leave the Mail out of that. Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in for this week's Talking Marijuana. We had a blast. We hope you did. And we'll see you all next week.
Pura vida.
Pura vida.
Pura vida.
You are listening to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Upcoming shows to the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.
Welcome to FYI. It's Dimitri Young here with Robert Fick.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Talking Marijuana.
Hi, everybody. Crabman's Rock and Roll Revival featuring Frazier Smith is on the air, in your hair, and going out everywhere around the world.
I'm Gary Garver, live from the John Lovitz Comedy Club.
This is the John Lovitz Vodcast Network.